You just want to know one thing. Will it happen or not? Will I get the job? Will this relationship work? Will this year be good? You don't want explanations. You don't want chart details. Just the prediction. But here is the uncomfortable truth. If you only want predictions, you may never reach real understanding. And without understanding, predictions eventually start misleading. Let's start with something most people secretly feel but rarely admit. Predictions are addictive. They give clarity, they reduce anxiety, they create temporary certainty. When an astrologer says, yes, this will happen in 2027, your mind relaxes. But here is the paradox. The more you depend on predictions, the weaker your ability to interpret life becomes. Astrology was never meant to be consumed like weather forecasts. It was designed to be understood, decoded, and applied. And when you reduce it to only future outcomes, you shrink its depth. Wanting only predictions is often not about curiosity, it's about outsourcing responsibility. If someone tells you marriage will happen next year, now the pressure shifts. You don't analyze patterns, you don't evaluate compatibility deeply, you don't question timing decisions. You wait. And waiting feels safer than understanding. But here is the problem. When predictions don't match reality, confusion multiplies. And instead of asking, did I misunderstand the chart? You ask, which astrologer should I try next? That cycle never ends. Pause for a moment. Have you ever gone to multiple astrologers for the same question? And be honest. If yes, write, I want clarity, not comfort. Write this in the comments. Because clarity begins when we stop chasing reassurance. Because you know what? Predictions without framework are dangerous. Here is what most people don't realize. A prediction is the final output of analysis. If you don't understand why a planet is giving result, how houses interact, what the dasha is activating, how strength modifies outcome, how divisional charts confirm themes, then a prediction is just a sentence floating without foundation. And when you hear different predictions from different sources, you don't have the tools to evaluate who is correct. You become dependent. Dependency is not learning. Dependency is intellectual stagnation. Predictions feel fast. Understanding feels slow. But speed is not depth. When you only want to know what will happen, you miss the real power of astrology. Why this pattern keeps repeating? What karmic lesson is being activated? Where your decision making is weak? Which timing windows require preparation? Astrology is not about waiting for fate. It is about preparing for cycles intelligently. But preparation requires study. If you are here because you genuinely want to understand astrology, not just collect predictions, subscribe this channel. Here we don't focus on quick yes or no answers. We build thinking patterns. Because once you understand structure, you don't panic every time a transit changes. Now understand that why prediction addiction blocks the growth. Here is something subtle happening psychologically. When you only seek predictions, you train your brain to look outward for certainty. Instead of asking, what does my chart teach me? You ask, what will happen to me? That shift is powerful. One builds awareness, the other builds dependency. And over time, dependency makes you vulnerable. You will switch astrologers frequently, doubt every timeline, blame planets for decisions you made impulsively, feel anxious before every major transit. Because you never learned the framework, you only collected outcomes. At beginner level, predictions excite you. At intermediate level, analysis fascinates you. At advanced level, interpretation humbles you. You realize even predictions have probability ranges. Even strong yogas require effort. Even difficult dashas contain opportunities. This maturity only develops when you go beyond what will happen and start asking, why is this pattern forming? If you truly want to move from prediction consumer to structured learner, explore our systematic astrology programs. We don't start with future telling techniques. We start with foundation thinking, context building, structured chart analysis, case based understanding. Because once you learn to think like an astrologer, you don't need to chase predictions. You can evaluate charts yourself. The link is below. If you only want predictions, you may never reach understanding. And without understanding, even correct predictions won't help you grow. Imagine someone tells you you will face relationship challenges between 2026 to 2028. If you only hear the outcome, you panic. But if you understand which house is activated, which planet is responsible, what psychological pattern is repeating, how to prepare emotionally and practically, then the same information becomes empowering. Prediction without context creates fear. Prediction with understanding creates a strategy. There is another uncomfortable reality. When you only see predictions, you reduce astrology to entertainment. You consume it like content. You binge watch readings. You scroll through shorts about Saturn in 7th house or Rahu in the 10th house. But real astrology is not 60-second answers. It is layered, contextual, and deeply interconnected. And depth requires discipline. If this video made you slightly uncomfortable, it's good. Discomfort means you are ready for depth. Share this with someone who keeps asking, just tell me what will happen. And if you are ready to stop chasing outcomes and start building understanding, take that step today. Enroll, study properly, commit to learning, not just predicting. Predictions are not wrong, they are incomplete without understanding. Astrology is not about knowing the future like a headline. It's about decoding patterns so you can act wisely in the present. If you only want predictions, you will always wait for life to happen. If you seek understanding, you begin shaping how you respond to it. And that difference changes everything.